I know many players who refuse to play the Slav defense because they don't want to face the Exchange Slav from white. They think Exchange Slav kills the Slav defense because white is going for something small but long lasting and taking the life out from those positions. I'm a Slav player myself and I never liked playing against the Exchange Slav, but today this is changing. Today I will show you a nice idea from Black's perspective to fight against the Exchange Slav and importantly take those players outside of their comfort zone. I will give you 3 key games to implement those ideas and we will scare them away. We will push them to their limits and we will execute beautiful attacks on the king side. We will bring dynamism to this dull system that the white players want to bring the game into. Okay, folks, are you ready? Please watch until the very end because I will even show you a game between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen to connect it to today's episode. Okay, folks? So, Slav is characterized by d4, d5, c4, c6. Of course, I made a video about this on YouTube. Slav opening for newbies. Please go and check that one. I will post a link on this one. This first game is between Yasser Seirawan and Alexander Belyavsky in 1988 World Cup. Yasser Seirawan is of course a very solid and sound player and definitely Exchange Slav is suiting his style. Exchange Slav is characterized by the move c takes d5, right? White wants to get something small and they are going for the symmetrical pawn structure this way. They want to open the c file, they want to put pressure on the queen side, slowly but steadily. That's what Exchange Slav players want to do as white. They think in this symmetrical pawn structure, this single tempo can be very beneficial. Like for example, they will play the move knight a4 to c5 at some point, start giving some threats on the queen side, and they generally have a long-lasting pull in those positions. If black plays passively, you can also get outplayed by those people. So that's what we are fighting against in this episode. We will murky the waters as soon as possible. Bishop f5, of course, we don't shy away from getting the bishop outside of the pawn chain either. There will be a chess crime to play e6 because the bishop is crying. So yes, bishop f5 is very logical. Knight f3, e6, very logical so far. And one of the most common moves for white is bishop b5 here, folks. Very logical. They are pinning our knight and also implement those ideas. For example, knight e5 or queen a4 and so on. Maybe sometimes they will take on c6 and create a weakness to be attacked on the c file. You see, white wants to get something small on the queen side, and here comes the first moment. Maybe you can stop the video right now and find a good plan for black. We don't want to allow this knight e5 forks, knight e5 pins, sorry. So knight d7 is a very useful move to remember. And this connects to our basic theme today. We want to move the knight from here for a couple of reasons. To unpin our knight, to fight for the e5 square. Plus, there is one more thing that is coming, folks. Watch out, after castle short, we play the move bishop e7. And now you start to see something cooking on the king side. And obviously, something cooking is the g5 plan. This will be our game plan against the Exchange Slav. We want to get quickly knight d7, bishop e7 in, and then we are rolling those pawns on g5, h5, h4 to gain space and to create a kingside attack. We are taking them outside of their comfort zone this way as well. It looks very innocent and yet it's full of venom for white. They already castled short, thus we have a target on the king side as well. In this game, Yasser took on c6 to give himself this weakness on c6 to target, right? You see, white wants to slowly grind the queen side, but chess gods have created the middle game before the end game, and thus Belyavsky will very soon start his plan on the king side. Again, white wants to slowly grind on the queen side, but we want to go bam, g5. This is the first idea of our entire setup. We first start with this move, hit the bishop with tempo, and what's the follow-up? You tell me. Of course, h5. And now we start to show the basic teeth of our pattern, right? This is what we are going for. We want to go and capture the bishop after h4. This comes with a huge threat on the bishop already. Thus, they should play the move h3, more or less. You will see this move over and over again. If they play h4, that's the final point of our entire setup, because we can take on h4, and thus, right, two defenders, two attackers, they can't take back on h4. We just win a pawn, follow it up with h3, and so on. Okay? So you can't even play h4 here, thus h3 is forced, but that's a hook pawn. You know, a hook pawn, right? This pawn will be used at some point to open up lines on the king side. Our target is the king on g1, thus Beliavsky goes g4, bam! g4 is on the board, and that's the whole conception. Yasser took on g4, but now Beliavsky got himself an open file for the rook. It looks terribly dangerous, and let me tell you, no Exchange Slav player likes to play this position with white. That's not they've signed up for. They signed up for slow, positional grind on the queen side. But we can burn the bridges on the queen side and mate the white king. Knight e5. Well, that's the final point of our knight e7 concept, because we can simply chop that knight off, and after bishop takes e5, well, we can easily play f6 because our king is very safe. It's a multi-purpose move because you also create this beautiful f7 point for your king. For example, like this, he plays king f7. Look how safe your king is in this position, folks. And you start to also connect your heavy pieces this way. This is another pattern that I want to teach you today, right? This f6 followed by king f7 is a very recurrent pattern for black in those structures. And please take a step back, folks. The h file is open. One of the very simple ideas is very simple, right? Just play rook somewhere followed by queen h8, and I want to mate you on h1. That's the weakest point around your king, and we want to mate you over there. It's already a very difficult position to defend for white. It's move 19, folks. It's almost a miniature. What's the move for black? You tell me. Bam! Rook h5 was chosen by Alexander Beliavsky, a very, very strong player, of course, right? Rook h5. Basically, the point is very simple. Queen h8 and rook h1 mate is coming. It's coming, folks. And after queen d2, you tell me what he played in this position. Black to play, folks. You want to also introduce this bishop into the attack somehow, because if you start with queen h8 directly, the king might flee to the queen side this way, right? The king might actually flee on e2 in this position. So accuracy is required. He did not play the move queen h8. I want you to involve this piece in the attack. How do you do it? You're a great player, folks. If you first start with the move bishop e4, a very strong move, after king f1, that's the only way, by the way, for them to attempt to flee their king from the king side. I want you to stop video right now, folks. Perfect moment to stop. What did black play in this position? Testing your attacking instincts here. Okay? Do you go queen h8 directly, or do you play some other move? And you're a great player if you found Beliavsky's move, bishop f3, and Yasser Sereban resigned as white. It's move 21, folks. It's almost a chess miniature. Because if you take the bishop, then look at the fishbone pawn that is created, that is choking the king on f1. There is already a mate in one threat with rook h1, and there is no defense. There is simply no defense. Just look at this picture, folks. Look at this beautiful pattern. You will be winning games like this against those Exchange Slav players. They want to attack on the queen side. They want to win the game on the queen side, right? If they go king g1, of course, queen h8 is beautiful. Alternative way to win for black is this. You can even sacrifice your rook, play queen h8, and here you play the next move, bishop d6. And again, we are going for a mate. There is no way for white to parry the mate basically like this, yeah? There are many beautiful ways to finish this game off, but it all starts already from this position, folks. Already from this position. You should know the move knight d7. Knight d7, especially against bishop b5, because they are pinning our knight. They want to go to e5, so that's a clear signal for us to play knight d7. It looks innocent. It looks so passive. Looks so passive with the bishop, what's going on. But then we take them outside of their comfort zone, starting with g5, h5. Look at this. It's very difficult to fend off the attack on the king side. If you go h3, huge concession, and after takes, our rook has developed without even moving, and this king is feeling the pressure. And you see, final pattern, king f7, you're connecting your heavy pieces, everything is working like charm, folks. And the final finish is beautiful, bishop e4, followed by bishop f3. If you play queen h8, folks, you're allowing king e2 flee, and the king can escape. Yes, you can win the pawn, but still, right, it's not the same because the king can still flee. Maybe the queen will go somewhere to create this d2 square for his king, right? You're missing, you're not catching that king on the king side. So accuracy is required. Beautiful bishop f3, and the game is completely finished. It's forced mate from this position. One more game, folks. I will show you another beautiful game just to reinforce the recurrent patterns, okay? Again, c takes d, knight c3. White player is the famous Anthony Fred Saidi. He was already quite old when the game was played, but he's still a very strong player, okay? Black player is Rivero Becerra, 2560 player. Very strong, of course, right? Look how black is playing. Everything is so symmetrical, right? Symmetrical exchange Slav. White is making all the natural moves. You tell me the next move. I'm testing your skills right now. Repetition. Yes, we first start with knight d7. He castles. He first play rook c8. It doesn't hurt. Of course, our conception is bishop e7, folks, because we want to roll g5 and h5. He ignores us. He wants to play on the queen side. Comes. You tell me. Of course, g5. After bishop g3, you tell me. Of course, h5. That's our conception on the king side. h3, g4 directly was even stronger, but he first played the move h4. This is also fine. Kicks the bishop first to also get this beautiful spot for his king, very close to what we saw so far. And then comes g4. In this case, he first played h4 and then g4. Drawback is the rook is still sleeping on h8, but at some point we can roll the h-pawn to get further concessions on the king side, right? Also, the knight is also pinned right now. Queen d3. Saidi wants to unpin himself, and he accepts these double pawns because the king will be still secure on h1 because the file is still closed. So we don't take that knight, folks. If you take that knight, then it's not an easy way to attack the king. The bishop is a good defender too, right? It's not the same. He didn't take that knight. He plays bishop f5 tempo on the queen, and then comes the next phase. King f7. We know this before. Our king is extremely safe on f7. Look at this. There is no way for white to open up the center to attack our king. It's very difficult. Bishop c6, bc6. Again, white is oblivious. White wants to play on the queen side, take our pawn on c6, maybe take our weakness on a7. But the problem is the queen is in Siberia and their king is left alone on the king side. And that's what we are baiting the white players. We are baiting them to get all the pieces to the queen side like this and leave their king naked and lonely. And look at this. What's the next move for black, folks? There is no way for us to defend our weaknesses anymore. So you burn the bridges on the queen side. And you tell me the next move. Of course, h3. You want to open up lines on the king side. It's as simple as that. If they go g3, then look at this. The bishop is shut down from the game completely. Terrible piece. Chess doesn't work like that, right? It's a big concession to play g3. Thus, they play the move rook takes c6 in the actual game. The problem with this move is that after takes, I simply take on g2 and activate my rook this way. Rook c1 was the game continuation, folks. He wants to use this pawn on g2 as an umbrella to shield his king on g1. But there's a big problem with this concept. Again, black to play, please formulate an attacking plan on the king side. Our goal is to use our pieces, right? Clearly, to attack the white king on g1. We already gave up a pawn on the queen side, but we are attacking on the king side. So, please tell me a good move for black in this position. Right now, that bishop is guarded by the knight on f3, but maybe we can change the picture. And you're a great player if you start with the move bishop e4. It's as simple as that. By attacking that knight, you're making this bishop a loose piece. Knight d2 was chosen by Saidi in the actual game. And now you will stop the video and you will tell me the entire sequence for black. How would you play this position with the black pieces? Our target is obviously the king on g1, folks. You're a great player if you start with the move rook takes h2. Again, rook joins the attack against the king. You remove the defender. Notice how your bishop is guarding this important pawn on g2 and the queen is joining the attack, right? Look at this. If king g1, that's easy. Just mate on the next turn. Thus, king g3 was forced, but this king is exposed on the king side. One more check is coming. One more check is coming. The queen is coming closer and closer, folks. So after king h3, the black player played the move. Bishop f5 check. King h2 is forced, and it's your turn. Your turn, folks. Black to play and finish off the game in 2 moves, basically. There are a couple of clear solutions, but I very much like this sequence, okay? Black to play. It's actually mate in 3 moves. Force mate in 3. I want you to visualize the resulting position crystal clearly, okay? Forcing finish for black. You're a great player, folks. If you came up with the move g1 equals queen, rook takes g1, queen h4 check, king g2, what's the finish? Queen h3. Look at this. Look at this beautiful finish in the end, right? It was all justified. Ever since the knight moved to d2, this combination became available. Of course, I'm sure many of you have seen similar combinations, mating attacks before, so this is a very intuitive move to make, right? Also shows us, right, the final point of king f7. By playing king f7, you're also connecting your heavy pieces and you're setting up for this beautiful combination. I assure you, you will win games like this against those Exchange Slav players who are repeating those structures over and over again, and they will be shocked to find themselves in a position like this. No one likes to defend in chess. It's very difficult to be so accurate in those positions, and we have objectively great chances to attack the king side in those positions. Practically, it also becomes easier to play for black, I would say, in those positions, right? Again, look at this. Just like in the first example, he played knight d7 first, follow it up with bishop e7 very quickly. We don't castle short, we keep it flexible, and the moment they castle short, we have this plan in our hands. We will play g5, h5. Our king is very safe because the central structure is very, very closed, right? There is no way for white to rip open the center and attack our king in this position. It's very safe to play on the flanks when the center is so stable, right? The third game, another beautiful one. I will show you a different way to execute the same idea in this case. Svitan versus Drev. Drev is a great Slav player. Slav players, you can use him as a model player and see how he's treating the Exchange Slav in this case. Bishop f4. In this case, it's interesting. He doesn't go bishop f5 directly. He plays the move e6 first, but he has a very, very venomous idea here. He starts with knight e4, folks. Knight e4 is a very interesting idea as well for black. First of all, if you take my knight, then after takes, this pawn is becoming a clear target for us, right? But the main point of knight e4 is actually this. Maybe you tell me already. This knight is supporting the g5 square. Thus, one idea becomes available to black. And you tell me what Drev played in this position, folks. We didn't bury our bishop for no reason. We are playing actively in this case with g5, follow it up with h5, right? The same concept in a different setting. In the first setting, we saw knight d7, bishop e7, g5, h5. In this case, he's showing us that the same idea can be established as long as there's a knight on e4. You see, there is no easy way for white to handle h4 threat. So in the actual game, he played h4 himself. The problem is now the bishop will be captured by the knight on e4, of course. And we just gave white clear weaknesses on the king side. This pawn is weak. This pawn on e3 has also become a clear weakness in his position. And of course, he goes g4 to kick that knight from that post as well. And now the structure is set. Black is trusting his good pieces, the bishop pair. This bishop is an unopposed bishop, by the way. Plus, the king is still living in the center of the board, right? White has so many problems to solve in this position. Black is already better in this case, folks. Bishop h6 was chosen by Drev, attacking the e3 point. And now comes my question to you, okay? If you give time to white, they will go like this, like knight f4, and slowly consolidate their position. Their king is in the center of the board. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? We have the bishop pair. We want to open up lines and activate our pieces as well. We also want to activate this guy on c8. So what's the move? You tell me. You're a great player if you found the move e5. What a powerful and timely pawn break e5. You want to rip open the center and you want to fight directly on those dark squares while also activating your bishop on c8, folks. And after, well, can they take on e5? You tell me. If they take on e5, what was his idea here? Can you see this pin? Can you see this pin, folks? Yes, the idea was d4, and the entire thing is collapsing for white over there. You see? Dynamical pawn breaks and the central structural changes. He can't take on e5. He played the move bishop b5 in this position. They need to quickly get the pieces out and castle short. But Drev did not give him any time. First he castled short, and after takes, white is now ready to castle short. But it's black to play. How do you play this position with black, folks? Yes, there are actually different ways, but I very much like this setup. E takes d4. Because of the pin, you cannot take back with the pawn. Queen takes d4 was chosen in the actual game. The problem is this. Now the e3 pawn is becoming a clear target for black to attack. Look at this. You see the earlier exchange on g3 that is causing all the problems to white in this case. Knight f4 was the only move to guard e3. But here comes Drev's point. He goes bishop g7, and the bishop is now finding itself this beautiful new diagonal. And after queen c5, well, d4 direction was also a good move here, folks. Maybe that was his first idea. You see, d4 utilizes the pin on the e-file while also hitting that knight. But that will also allow moves like castle long. He doesn't want to calculate in this case, and he plays a much more quiet and natural queen b6. He's welcoming this endgame, folks. Black has the bishop pair for the knight pair, but also a clear target on e3, and the bishop is a monster on this diagonal, right? Please judge this position accurately. Objectively, black is clearly better in this case, and he converted the advantage like this. Rook e3, bishop d4. You see the alignment? You see how that bishop is becoming a giant in this case? Rook d1 was chosen. Directly rook f3 double check was even better because king e2 is not possible because the final bishop is joining the attack like this. And after king e1, folks, well, bishop f2 check was a very good move. Bishop a6 check followed by bishop e3 check. Once the bishops are perfectly placed, black has a completely winning positional advantage here. Just look at the white pieces, look at rook on a1. There is no way that you're surviving this domination. He didn't play that way. He played bishop c5 and allow b4, which is a good move. But even so, black is going to be better in this position, right? He allowed that bishop to be traded off, but of course, black got a pawn for that. And look at those central passed pawns. Black has a clear advantage, and he's a great endgame player. He pushed the pawn, and actually white resigned after d3 because there is no easy way for them to stop the move d2 followed by bishop e2, right? Look at this. Look at this beautiful bishop join the game in the end in a beautiful force. They were already busted in the endgame and they resigned. So this game interestingly shows us sometimes the same ideas can be implemented in different contexts, right? In this case, he didn't play bishop f5, he chose e6, but he played very energetically in this position with knight e4 followed by g5. Again, we are spicing things up. We want to get them outside of their comfort zone. They want slow, quiet games in those structures. We want to break the bind. We want to challenge them directly with early g5 and h5. Finally, I will show you the first opening phase of the game between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen, played in Norway Chess 2018. This was Wesley So's first classical victory against Magnus Carlsen. He annotated it in a nice way on ChessBase. So I'll also tell you some of his observations about this game. See how he's going for the Exchange Slav. See how he wants to grind on the queen side slowly. Carlsen is playing a6. Useful move generally against queen a4s, knight b5s. It's a very useful move to make. Rook c1. This case, we are actually seeing a different move order, right? We have not seen the a6 lines before, but the same idea exists in this case. Bishop b5 is no longer possible, so basically plays bishop e2 instead. But then again, Magnus is hinting at that plan. In this position, normal moves are this, right? Maybe bishop b4, maybe bishop e7, bishop d6. If you play this way, white will slowly play on the queen side. They will go knight c5 to hit those pawns. For example, if you exchange those bishops, that's what white players are used to, right? They will play moves like this, knight c5, right? The bishop is now exchanged off, your dark square bishop, which allows knight c5s. Annoying and nagging pressure on the queen side. That's what white players are seeking in this structure. Thus, Magnus plays the move knight d7. Knight d7. What is going on here, right? It was played against bishop b5s early on, and yet the same idea holds. Because the white king has castle short, we haven't chosen our king location yet. And this is where things are going to be spiced up in this case. Knight a4, you tell me the next move. Of course, Magnus plays the move bishop e7, right? And you see what is hint at in this position. Again, if you play normally, white wants to grind on the queen side, and here basically so plays h3 because he sees that Magnus wants to play g5, h5, and g4 to attack the king. Thus, he plays the prophylactic h3. He's anticipating the move g5, and he will respond with the move bishop h2. Magnus, in the actual game, folks, he shied away and he played the move castle short, and Wesley So won a beautiful game. I will even quickly show you like how he played, because now the game is much more quiet and it gave him a chance to grind them on the queen side, right? He got himself those beautiful pawns, opened up the d4 square, and white was already like slightly better in those positions. Wesley played very nicely in this case. He won the pawn back. Already here, right? We understand that white is better on the queen side. Clearly, we are restricted, and Wesley showed great technique to consolidate his advantage and then won a beautiful, beautiful game against Magnus Carlsen. But the devil is in details. Wesley So wrote that Magnus missed a big chance in this position to play the move g5. Wesley says g5 is a very good move here. I won't give an exclamation mark since the position remains very unclear, but it definitely, he says, is a good practical alternative, right? Now the kingside pawns look threatening, he says, and it's anybody's game, and it's not easy to play for both sides. That's what he wrote. g5, bishop h2. What's your next move? Of course h5. We saw this before. g4 is our threat. So white should play the move knight e2, right? They want to prophylactically anticipate the move g4. That's exactly why Wesley played h3, basically, yeah? To get one full tempo before we gain tempo with g4 on that knight. But what should black play here, folks? You tell me. You tell me a good-looking idea for black. Yes, positional pawn sacrifice with g4 was still very good here, folks. Notice, if they go h4, you simply take that pawn. So white needs to react to this move. Takes. We sacrificed one full pawn, but look at what we got in return. Our rook became a happy piece on the h file, folks. A single pawn is nothing in a position like this. We gained clear compensation for the pawn. We don't even trade the bishops. We play bishop d3. A very strong alternative. Hit the rook as well, comes with tempo. And after bishop b2, well, bishop b4 is a great move. What's the point? By playing bishop b4, you're activating your queen. Can you see the dangers that is facing the white king in this position? And if they take on d3 in this position, folks, should we go directly queen h4, or should we first chop that knight off from the board and then go queen h4? Yes, you first chop that knight off and then play queen h4, and now our attack is raging on the king side to beautiful proportions. Look at this, folks. The bishop cannot move because of mate on h1. Thus, they are in trouble. His king is in trouble. If you play queen h4 directly, it will be bad because you allow knight f3, hit the queen, and guard the bishop as well. Look at this. Look at this beautiful multi-purpose move bishop b4. You want to chop that knight off, but also you want to play queen h4 very, very soon. Just to show you, right, the dynamism that is waiting you as black in those positions. So after bishop d3, Bishop d3, bishop b2. Well, after bishop b4, white has to be careful in this position, folks, to hold this game. Knight f3, bishop b4, for example. And again, we don't trade the bishops. We want to keep the pieces on the board. We are highlighting such ideas. Takes followed by queen h4. And you see, that's what compensation is about in chess. You don't want to get the pawn back as soon as possible, but your claim is very simple. H file is open, G file has become semi-open, and this is great compensation for me as black in a position like this, don't you think? After h5, Vesi also looked at this move, knight e1 as an alternative, but black goes g4 anyways. This is our plan from the beginning, folks. Bishop d3 might be a good alternative for white, and yet we can take that bishop and play rook g8, for example. Again, we are getting ready for the g file play. And if they play king h1, it's a very unclear position, in fact. It's a very unclear position because if you count the number of pawns, we will not even sacrifice a pawn to counter this position. Yes, our king is in the center, but how can you exploit that? How can you punish this king in the center of the board, folks? It's a very rich and interesting position that I'm sure many of you would like to take as black against those boring Exchange Slav players. I hope I gave you a nice toolbox, folks, that you can take those players outside of their comfort zone and you will enjoy those attacking games in the middle game. Psychological preparation is so important, and I think for Exchange Slav players, this is a great weapon. I will implement it myself in my own games, and I'm very curious of how you will perform in your own games with those early g5 and h5 moves that will completely take them as a shock. And I'm sure many of them collapse in this pressure on the king side because they have not exposed to those patterns before. It's an uncommon idea for black actually, but you'll be much more prepared in those patterns and chunks which I just showed you today. Okay, a single pawn is not so important. You want to open up lines in the middle game to activate your rooks, plus your king is very safe even on f7 as we saw before to combine and connect your heavy pieces, and the rest is on your skill basically to use also your bishop in some nice ways, right? To exploit the weaknesses around the king and to combine all these pawn storm ideas which I already showed you in this episode, but also in my previous videos on pawn storms. There are so many similarities and connections here, folks, okay? Please give me feedback. If you win some games in those structures, please write to me on this video comment and I will give you feedback. I can even make other videos about my students' victories after they watched this video. That will make me a very happy chess teacher and coach as a result. If you like this video, folks, please give me a like and subscribe. I'm even planning to make a course on the Slav defense, and this might be one of those lines in this course against the Exchange Slav. This is really venomous, folks, and also sound objectively. I'm waiting for your feedback, and I hope you will crush those boring Exchange Slav players. Slav is a great opening, and I'm hoping that you will get the right lessons from this video. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.